May 7, 1945. For 6 long, brutal years, the world had been engulfed in the flames of the Second World War. But now, finally, the end was in sight. In Europe, the Nazi war machine was collapsing, its armies in full retreat. Peace was no longer a distant hope. It was a matter of hours, maybe even minutes. For the soldiers on the front lines, every tick of the clock was a step closer to survival, a step closer to home. They had endured unimaginable hardship, witnessed unspeakable horrors, and now they were on the very precipice of victory. The air itself seemed to hum with anticipation. In the misty, rolling hills of Czechoslovakia, near a small town called Voller, a reconnaissance patrol from the USA 803rd Tank Destroyer Battalion was cautiously making its way through the quiet landscape. Leading the patrol was Private First Class Charles Havlat. He was 35 years old, a little older than many of the fresh-faced Gias around him. He wasn't a career soldier. Back home in Dorchester, Nebraska, he was a farmer. He knew the rhythm of the seasons, the feel of the earth, not the cold mechanics of war. But like millions of others, when his country called, he answered. Charlie Havlat was the son of Czech immigrants. In a twist of fate, the war had brought him back to the land of his ancestors, a land he was now helping to liberate. He had a sister, Lumila, who had received a letter from him just days before. He wrote that the war was almost over, that he would be home soon. He told her not to worry. On that quiet morning, as his patrol moved through the fog-draped trees, home must have felt tantalizingly close. The smell of damp earth, the chirping of birds reclaiming the morning it, was a world away from the thunder of artillery and the rattle of machine guns. It was a morning that promised peace. The time was 8:20 a.m. The men in Havlat's patrol were on high alert, but the silence was almost peaceful. They were unaware of a critical piece of information, a secret that was racing across the airwaves but hadn't reached them yet. Just hours earlier, in a small red schoolhouse in Reims, France, German General Alfred Jodl had signed the instrument of unconditional surrender. The ceasefire was set to take effect across the entire European theater. The war was, for all intents and purposes, over. But news travels at its own pace, especially on a chaotic battlefield. For PFC Havlat and his men, the war was still very much real. Suddenly, the peaceful morning shattered. From the dense woods, a storm of machine gun fire erupted without warning. A desperate, fanatical pocket of German soldiers, who either hadn't received the order to surrender or refused to accept it, had sprung one final, pointless ambush. The air, which moments before had held the promise of peace, was now thick with the whistle of bullets. The American soldiers scrambled for cover. The sudden violence, a shocking reminder that the war was over until the very last shot was fired. Several of Havlat's comrades were hit in the initial burst of fire, their cries of pain cutting through the chaos. Without a moment's hesitation, Charles Havlat acted on pure instinct. He was a leader, a brother in arms. His men were in trouble. He didn't think about the surrender, about his farm in Nebraska, or about the letter he'd sent to his sister. He thought only of the men on the ground. He rushed forward, exposing himself to the enemy fire, trying to reach his wounded comrades, to provide covering fire, to do something asterisk. It was an act of pure, selfless courage, the kind of heroism that had defined the American soldier throughout the war. In that instant, a single shot rang out, distinct from the others. German sniper, hidden in the trees, had found his mark. Private First Class Charles Havlat was struck and fell. His act of bravery was his last. His war, which was just minutes from its official end, was over. He had survived years of conflict, crossed an ocean, and fought his way across a continent, only to fall in the final sputtering moments of the fight. Back at the command post, the radio operator was frantically trying to relay the most important message of the war. Finally, the static cleared, and a voice came through, crisp and clear. The time was 8:30 a.m. The message was simple. Ceasefire ordered. Hostilities ended. The guns were to fall silent. The war in Europe was officially over. The message arrived just 10 minutes after Charles Havlat was killed. 10 minutes. 600 seconds. A lifetime. He became the last American soldier to be killed in action in the European theater of operations during World War II. It's a tragic and profoundly ironic distinction. He was a man who died for a peace that had already been declared. His death serves as a brutal, heart-wrenching punctuation mark at the end of a long and bloody chapter in human history. It underscores the senselessness of that final ambush and the immense cost of war, which continues to claim lives right up until the very end, and even after. The news was devastating to his unit. For them, the joyous celebration of VE Day, Victory in Europe Day, would forever be tinged with the sorrow of losing one of their own at the finish line. While the world erupted in celebration, filling the streets of London, Paris, and New York with cheers and laughter, a small group of American soldiers in a quiet corner of Czechoslovakia mourned their friend. They carefully wrapped his body in a clean white mattress cover, a final act of respect for a fallen hero. Charles Havlat was initially buried in a temporary military cemetery in Germany, but his family, especially his sister Ludmilla, wanted him brought home. They wanted him to rest in the soil he knew, the soil he had farmed. After the war, his body was returned to the United States. Today, he lies in the Bohemian National Cemetery in his home state of Nebraska. His headstone is simple, bearing his name, rank, and the dates of his life. It doesn't mention his unique, tragic place in history, but the story is there for those who seek it. His story is not just a historical footnote, it's a powerful reminder of the individual human cost of conflict. When we talk about war, we often speak in huge numbers, millions dead, entire cities destroyed. It's easy to become numb to the scale of it all. But the story of Charles Havlat brings it all back down to a single human life. A farmer from Nebraska, a son of immigrants, a brother, a friend, a man who is 10 minutes away from going home. Every soldier who falls has a story. They have a family waiting for them, dreams for the future, a life that was cut short. Charles Havlat's story represents every single one of them. He stands for the soldier killed on DID, the sailor lost at Pearl Harbor, the airman shot down over Germany. His death, in the war's final moments, encapsulates the ultimate tragedy of it all, that even in the moment of victory there is profound loss. It reminds us that peace is not an abstract concept. It is something bought and paid for with the lives of people like Charles Havlat. When we remember World War II, let's remember the grand strategies and the famous battles. But let's also remember the quiet, misty morning in Czechoslovakia. Let's remember the soldier who rushed forward to help his friends. Let's remember that for him, and for his family, the war didn't end with a ceasefire. It ended with a sniper's bullet. His sacrifice, made in the very last moments of the conflict, should inspire us to cherish the peace he died to secure. We owe it to him, and to all who fell, to never forget the true cost of war. Thank you so much for watching. If this story moved you, please consider liking this video and subscribing to our channel for more stories that honor the past. Remembering these individuals is how we keep their legacy alive. We'll see you in the next one.